What is going on, guys? We're back. Another episode from Coin and Capital. It's Chris here, bringing the truth, the headlines, distilling it, looking at the data, giving you guys the truth. And the truth is, this week, Bitcoin has been on sale. I hope you guys have been making good use of it. I know I have. And today, guys, we're going to talk about one of, if not, I think the coolest thing happening to Bitcoin, which is Bitcoin collateralization. So, in a few videos in the past few weeks, there have been some headlines popping up that we've talked about. You know, JPMorgan, some of these big banks gaining exposure, giving exposure into the cryptocurrency world. And on top of that, using cryptocurrencies, specifically Bitcoin, as collateral, guys. How exciting is that? What started out as internet money, Ponzi schemes, money laundering, terrorist money is now being used as collateral by the biggest banks in the US, guys. And I'm sure bigger banks abroad are doing the same thing. And soon, guys, US treasuries will no longer be considered pristine collateral, because guess what? Bitcoin does it better. And when something does something better, the market reprices and reallocates into that better thing. So, first thing we need to understand is that the halving cycles, safe to say, these are no longer going to play a big role in Bitcoin's price discovery. It didn't really play such a big role this year, right? We had the halving and then we chopped for 7 months, which I think psyched a lot of people out. Everybody thought we were over before we even started. I mean, people still think that, but nonetheless. Why is this? Well, to the right, we have an excerpt from one of my fund's reports that we've been writing. Bitcoin has crossed a structural threshold from a halving anchored commodity cycle into a liquidity sequenced money cycle. What does this mean? Well, instead of supply dynamics and retail frenzies being the major driver of price discovery in Bitcoin like we've seen in the earlier cycles, we now have these big institutions coming along that sequence their buys, sequence injections of liquidity, and then use that underlying asset to lend against, to use as collateral in the financial system, to then take more liquidity and put it back in. Which is crazy. What a time to be alive, because guys, retail has had access to this from the beginning. I think I got into it late. I got into Bitcoin and crypto like 3 years ago. I feel late. But we're still so early, guys. This is crazy. And now, coming back to one of my favorite models produced from my fund. We're working on an actual 3D rendering of it. Interactive model, which I think is going to be super cool. But last video and a few videos before that, if you guys search through the channel, I've shown you guys a 3D render image of what that model looks like. Here I have a 2D, which I think you can visualize it a lot better. But basically, guys, this gravity well models what happens to Bitcoin's price the more it's used as collateral. Right? I don't think this is talked about enough, because the more Bitcoin is used as collateral, guys, the price impacts of that are insane, right? So in this well, we have two data points. We have collateral velocity, so how much collateral is being used off of that one Bitcoin that's being pledged, right? How much credit is on top of that. And then we have BCR. So just derived from the original Bitcoin supply, or the floating free supply, how much of that is being used and pledged for collateral. So we have supply, how much from the total supply, 21 million, is being used. And then CV on top of that existing supply is how much credit is being produced per one unit, right? And now to the right, we have price gauges. And then here on the map, we see BCR right here. And then we have CV running vertical here. Okay, so we have today's BCR and CV marked out. But look at this, guys. Look at this. So as BCR trends this way, right, it gets pulled closer into that yellow zone, which is really aggressive price discovery, right? But as BCR moves horizontally and then CV pulls it up vertically, guys, look at this. We go into the millions quite easily. So say the CV stays pretty low, right? Not much credit is being created on top of each unit of Bitcoin, right? So let's say it hangs out at 1.75, right? But then BCR continues to edge and to edge, right? And then we still end up in the 5 millions. It's crazy, guys. I don't think a lot of people fully understand the impact this is going to have on price when Bitcoin fully becomes pristine collateral. And then back to this headline, because guys, this is super important. The big banks want this. The big banks understand how good of an opportunity this is. JPMorgan to allow institutional clients to use Bitcoin as loan collateral. JPMorgan will let institutional clients use Bitcoin as loan collateral by late 2025, reflecting growing institutional adoption of digital assets. Late 2025. Last time I checked, we just hit November. BCR, 3%, right? Even if CV comes down to like 1.5, 1.25. Yeah, right, dude. Here, another excerpt from one of the reports we've posted. Bitcoin ETFs and regulated stablecoins have become structural transmission channels for global liquidity. Capital now moves directly from fiscal issuance and balance sheet expansion into Bitcoin exposure via these rails. What does that mean? That means Bitcoin, digital assets, are being used in portfolios. So when fiscal issuance or money printing occurs, a lot of that liquidity gets pulled into portfolios, right? Because guys, these people understand when money gets printed, value is being lost in the currency. So they need to put it somewhere where at the very minimum it maintains a degree of value, right? Which is portfolios. Guess what lives in portfolios now? Is Bitcoin and digital assets. With US fiscal dominance, ex-US easing, and institutionalized crypto wrappers, the probability of this liquidity cycle extending into mid-2026 is high. For Palfrey Limited, the mandate is clear. Treat Bitcoin as reserve collateral, a monetary instrument embedded within the policy machine itself. Guys, Bitcoin is pristine collateral. It's the best form of collateral we have ever created. And if you're not making use of it, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. We have people like Jack Mallers and the whole Bitcoin community, at least I hope, living life on a Bitcoin standard. What does that mean? What does that mean? They don't own any fiat. They take loans against their Bitcoin to pay their bills while still holding custody of their coins. Over time, their life gets cheaper. Their life gets cheaper. You can pay a 12, 15% interest rate, maybe even 20. Bitcoin, 50% CAGR. Doesn't even matter. And then to cap off this video, guys, a very nice visual. to understand where we are in the trajectory of Bitcoin adoption. So wave one is this technology speculation, which I think we just finished up last cycle. People didn't really know what blockchain is. They needed a lot of help to understand what it was. They kind of understood what it was now. Okay, this is going to change the world. Wave two. Here comes the money. Okay, if this is going to change the world, I want to make money from it. How do I do this? We bring Bitcoin into our portfolios. We collateralize it. We lend against it. And we make so much money. So much money, guys. Wave three is base collateralization. That is when Bitcoin rivals US Treasuries as global collateral. When that happens, guys, you see that arrow, right? It's straight up. Straight up. Guys, there's only 21 million. And when it rivals US Treasuries as collateral, you better own some when that happens. Do yourself a favor, just own some, throw it in a cold storage and forget about it. Thank me later. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed this video, drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Smash that like button. Make sure to subscribe as well, because I'll catch you guys in the next video.